For over a decade now, Sudanese-British philanthropist Mo Ibrahim has been shining a light on governance in Africa. Every 2 years, the Ibrahim Index of African Governance provides comprehensive data and key insight into how well African countries are governed. The 2022 index report is now out. How well have African countries fared? What should we be worried about? And what should we feel optimistic about? I put those questions to Mo Ibrahim when he joined me via Skype from the United Kingdom. I began by asking him what the Ibrahim Index for African Governance measures, how it measures, and what it hopes to accomplish.
We believe governance is measurable. And instead of nice speeches and polemics, we need data, information. And what we try to measure is what we call deliverables. What is the job of the government? The government needs to deliver to the people, to deliver better health, better education, better infrastructure, jobs, security, rule of law. All these things are measurable. And what we try to do is to collect as much data as possible. We have over 40 organizations worldwide who supply us with their data. We go in and fill in the gaps in this data as well. The index contains some over 200,000 data points, and this is reduced into 4 main categories. One is security and rule of law, and one is economic opportunity, everything to do with the economy, and one is about rights, participation, and human rights, democracy, etc. And one is about the human development, health, education, gender issues, etc. These are the 4 main categories, and we try to produce that complete picture of governance at that point of time in Africa through data. And what we're trying to do is to produce tools to help develop policies, because without data, how can people really manage and govern a country? It's important to develop policies based on data.
And I've heard you say that without data, governments are essentially driving blind. And so the 2022 IIAG report is now out. Can you give us an idea of what your main finding was?
Right. What we try to look is at really the trends in governance. So we look at a period of 10 years, and what we see over the past 10 years is that governance in general in Africa has improved over the past 10 years. That's good news. But there is some issues also around that. Governance have developed for about 7 years, between 2012 up to 2019, and then in the last 3 years it stagnated. It's sort of flattened. And that is worrying. Also, we noticed that most of the improvement really happened in 2 of the 4 categories, which is economic opportunities and human development. This should have been the driver pushing the performance of our governments forward. But at the same time, we see deterioration in 2 other categories. One is security and rule of law, and the other one is democracy and rights. Unfortunately, we started to stagnate, and we're ringing some alarm bells here. We need to pay attention.
And I want to delve a little deeper into what you show us some worrying trends. What, in your view, is the greatest concern that we should have right now?
We really are concerned about the situation of security and rule of law. This has been deteriorating over the last 10 years. So that makes our people less safe, and it is worrying. On participation and human rights and democracy, We see also stagnation there. Since 2019, over the past 3 years, we had two military takeovers, two coups, 8 coups in Africa in just 3 years. This is a worrying trend of military taking over, and we know what happened then. We see that the space for civil society is closing. That is also worrying to us. So we're really worrying about these main two issues: security, rule of law, and the issue of freedom and participation of our people.
And your report does show there have been 23 successful and attempted coups on the African continent since 2012. You list a dozen of countries affected there. And then there's this surprising statistic that almost 70% of Africans now live in a country where there is conflict, of course. And that is very alarming because armed conflict and other violence, you say, is worse now than it was 10 years ago. What does that say about the continent's ability to meet the challenges of its own security?
That is a very, very good question. It is really an important issue we need to face. And the reason for insecurity and conflicts, I think there are two main reasons. One, of course, is failure of governance. Any conflict has roots in socio-economic situation, marginalization of communities, etc. And the way the government handles this conflicts. The other reason also is really out of our hands, which is climate change. Climate is causing problems in Africa. The 10 most affected countries in the world by climate change are all African countries. What that result in is some serious problems. For example, we have large communities which are essentially herders. People raise animals. They need to graze. And because of climate change, they lose the grazing lands. Then they move with their animals towards more fertile lands. But that is farmers there who trying to grow their own food. And obviously you can see the conflict between two communities, the farmers and the herders. That is essentially caused by climate change. But also, we probably don't handle, or some governments don't handle this properly, and that worsens the situation. So there is various reasons causing the conflict and security, but governance is really at the heart of this, how to manage that. And that's something we really need to do with it, and we need to find an African solution for it. And it is very sad to see some governments opt out to hire mercenaries from Russia, Wagner Group, etc., as it happened in 2 or 3 countries in Africa, which will do nothing to help security of our people.
You also mentioned some bright spots, though, reasons to be optimistic, and you mentioned some earlier, but especially around the issue of gender. I found that quite interesting and really showed the value of measuring. We advocate for these things, but it's very important to go back and actually measure our performance here. Gender, very interesting. How well are we faring on that score?
This is one of the bright spots really in the report. Gender really situation has improved quite a lot, consistently, year after year. And it's really wonderful. Just a word of caution here. We are not there yet because we are coming from a very low base. And we need to continue this improvement. But it is heartening that it is happening. This is wonderful. We also like the developments in infrastructure. It's positive. It's happening everywhere in Africa. So we are better connected now. We have better infrastructure in general in Africa. But again, like gender, we're coming from a very low base. There is still so much ground really to be covered.
Mo, just something that is really in your wheelhouse, of course, internet and connectivity. And then the other issue where we lack connectivity, and that is electricity. And I've heard you talk about the importance for our economies that we have electricity for people in African countries. But when you have a shortage of electricity and you have rolling blackouts in some of the largest economies in Africa, like Nigeria and South Africa, the country that I am from, I mean, it still boggles the mind. How big is this problem, and how can it be overcome?
This is a very serious problem. You are absolutely right. We have 600 million people, almost 50% of our people, without access to electricity. Without access to electricity, you don't have access to life. You don't have education, you don't have health, you don't have business, you have nothing. And that is a serious problem. We really need to deal with it urgently. And we need to focus on really providing electricity while at the same time, of course, maintaining our march towards a green economy.
Mo, one final question. Was there a region or a country that really gave you the most hope when you really looked at the data and you really considered how well or how poorly we're doing in areas? Is there a country or region that other African countries can look to or learn from as a way to do certain things right?
I think we have a number of countries which are really doing wonderful. We have Botswana, is a wonderful governance. Historically has been really great. We have Namibia, we have Mauritius, we have Seychelles, we have Cabo Verde. There's a number really of countries which are really doing well. And I hope we can see more countries, especially the large countries, where we're still waiting for Nigeria to move forward. And again, South Africa is going backward, unfortunately. It's very important, your own country. That should have been the locomotive to pull the region forward. But unfortunately, it's dealing with some difficult issues.